Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting ready. We're getting going. On today's program, we all know cheese to be a great source of calcium, but different cheeses can offer so much more. Nutritionist Julia Karantjas has the scoop on this. She'll just squeeze the whey out of the subject. And we take a description-rich tour of one of the great Maya cities, which remains half buried in the jungle, with audio describer and traveler JJ Hunt. Wow. What kind of mobility lesson would that be to take? I would imagine a challenging one at best.
This is Kelly and Company.
And I'm so glad to have you on board, riding along with us. Kelly MacDonald here, host of Kelly and Company, and also with me, my co-host, Nazreen Abdul-Majid. How are you today?
Pretty good. Happy Monday.
Interesting Monday, too, because it's an interesting date, because back in 2013, Chris Hadfield, astronaut, Canadian astronaut, I may add, who we've over the years learned has a few different, I would say pastimes, but talents, and one of them being music. So on this day, Nazreen, he recorded in space the song Space Odyssey. Great place to record it. But the concept of recording this song in space, done. It's something that's a fact. And I know they've also done, I think, a Russian director, producer, had them record a short movie in space too. So these two things have been done. But on this date, our Chris Hadfield performed Space Odyssey. You can actually play it, through whatever resource, listen to it, and not bad. Now, he's also been out there performing with other groups too, over the years. Just on stage, he'll pop at somebody's concert and perform with them, play along. So really amazing, and I think something that definitely. Now we probably hear more about his music than probably the space part of things, even with him writing the book, the photos, and everything like that he's done.
This guy has a long list of talents. Can I just add that? A long list of talents. Amazing. But can you imagine the story to tell that you recorded in space? The song Space Odyssey.
I wonder what challenges. I know we could do a lot even in 2013 in recording and stuff like that, and I'm sure it was a basic fundamental way of recording it, but still playing everything like that we hear about in space, the things that the human body goes through, the things you've got to take into account. I just would love to find, and I'm sure it's available, interviews about just making that recording. Yeah,
I just want to watch a video of them kind of going through the recording process and see what it's like, because that's a wild experience. That is so wild, and I want to know, damn, that might be expensive though. I just thought of the price. It's so expensive just to think. Yeah, just the whole thing, just being in space, recording it. It's a different lifestyle than what we're living. That's for sure.
There's got to be videos. On YouTube or something, right?
Of
the process, interviewing, or out there on social media. There's got to be stuff that was put out there when he was doing it, because now they all do that stuff up there. They're probably out there on X and whatever, or have content like that around.
Look at Katy Perry.
Something. Wow. Yes, because she went up to space.
Yeah, but there was a rumor going on, allegedly, that it was all fake, because it was a whole thing, but a lot of different celebrities, a bunch of girls, celebrities that went up in space, and apparently a lot of people don't believe it. So that's a trip up on social media.
I guess for those people who still don't believe that the original moon landing happened, are kind of on board with that kind of thing and quite happy to spread it around. Yeah. But I guess those things are going to cycle back. Why would they take their chance? Why would they go out there? Who would allow this many celebrities to do something like that, or whatever? And that would be how I think the basis of comment. I don't know. I haven't heard this. I don't think that's going around. What do you think? Mm-hmm. They went there.
It's just that they didn't look like they were dressed for space, really. And they took a lot of videos for Instagram, and their hair looked fine. I didn't feel like everybody believed that they were in a simulator.
Yep.
And apparently there was a behind the scenes video of somebody opening the door and it got caught and it got leaked. So everybody's like, nah, I don't believe it. And I'm questioning it too, because she had a flower, a daisy, holding it for her daughter, Katy Perry. And in the whole video, she's just holding it. But I researched about it, and turns out, like, if you're in space, obviously the flower is gonna crust up, die immediately. Like, it's that's what I searched up at least. But I don't know. Allegedly,
it's hard, right? Because you don't know in capsules and what they're doing. I mean, the different things that are going on. I don't know enough about that. But I will say this. You take those ladies to the North Pole in a high wind, I bet their hair will still look fine too, though.
What bothered me the most, though, is that they're calling themselves astronauts.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
No, dude. No, dude.
I wonder how
Don't
astronauts feel about that as they're running their miles today,
yeah, exactly.
as they're dealing with stuff from being in space that when they come back after being there so long is stuck with them for life. You know, I wonder how they feel about that kind of thing, right?
Like, you can't, don't do that, man. Like,
I'm an astronaut in 10 minutes.
You can't go into a building and call yourself an architect. Like, that's not how it works. That's what I'm imagining. And it's just wild to me that they're actually convinced. Oh, and these interviews actually ask them, how does it feel to be an astronaut? And I'm like, what? Like,
they play right into it, right?
Calling them astronauts now just because they allegedly went to space. It's this story took a turn, Kelly.
How do you feel? You threw out the first pitch of today's game in honor of a certain charity at the Rogers Center. How's it feel to be a Major League Baseball player? Folks, you can email us any of these answers, any comments that you might have at kellyco@ami.ca. You can give us a call, 1-866-509-4545. Want to always hear from you if we can. Maybe we'll even use your voice on the program.
We can always count on psychotherapist Fern Lulham to save the day. And ironically, I think that's what she's here to talk with us about today. Isn't that right, Fern?
That is correct, Nisreen. I'm glad you've just been talking about space, because this segment is going to be out of this world.
Ooh, good segue.
I like that.
Almost really segue standard in practice.
Ba-ba-boom. That's great. That was good.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. That's appreciated. So today we are going to be talking, as Nisreen very rightfully said, about rescuers. So we all know someone like this, or maybe we are someone like this, who has to swoop in at any given moment and save the day and make sure everyone is fine, everything's all right. You won't wait for somebody to try and figure it out themselves. You're just going to be the one to solve everyone's problems. Do you know anyone like that, guys?
Probably. Yes. And probably have been once in a while some person that comes in, I can help, I can save the day.
I feel like that's my mom. I don't know. Like, I think I picture my mom doing the rescuing for everybody in the family.
Yes, I think that's right, Nisreen. I think mums are, a big culprit for this, because I suppose mums kind of just want everyone to be happy and to be all right. But funnily enough, I feel the same way about my mum, is that she will very much kind of swoop in, and even if you haven't asked for her help, you might say, like, oh, I'm feeling a bit thirsty, and before you even blinked or anything, she's given you 5 liters of every beverage under the sun. So it's this kind of need to be needed almost. And I suppose what people get from rescuing is that they get something out of it in terms of they feel valued, they feel more secure, or sometimes there's an element almost of control of, like, you could do it, but I can do it better, so I should just do it myself, right?
Yes.
But, I mean, and as you ladies say about your moms, okay, but what are the traits that we would look for in that rescuer? Would we recognize them? I mean, I'm sure when you mention Fern, maybe even more names pop to our head, and we say, okay, but I'm not sure, because one of the key things, isn't it kind of as a distraction for that person who's the rescuer?
Yes,
Mm,
it very much can be. And it can be a way almost of distracting from their own needs. So,
Yes.
whenever there's kind of a silence or a place where they're feeling uncomfortable emotions, they will, instead of thinking, okay, how do I feel right now? What do I need right now? They'll think, oh, what does so and so need? I'll go and
that's
listen to their
exactly it.
problems
Yeah.
and distract myself. Yeah. Do you ever sort of relate to that, Nisreen, or know somebody like
Yeah.
that?
And I take that back to my mom, because I find these traits with my mom a lot, where she goes through a lot of stress, a lot of things in her life, but she immediately goes to, one of her kids, whether it's my sisters or one of my siblings, and it's like, okay, how can I fix your issues?
Is that
how
like a
can I
distraction?
help you? And I think it is a distraction. I think it's something that she wants control over, whereas whatever she's going through, maybe she feels like there's not much to
Yeah.
control of. There's not much control of the situation, so it is difficult. It makes sense. It really does make sense, because a lot of us, I feel like for myself too, I want something to, I want to fix things that I feel like I can control. I can fix
Yes.
things. Whereas whatever we go through, maybe we're under a lot of stress, it's overwhelming, and you just want to like step back, go to a
Yes.
different issue. And I feel like a
Eh,
lot of us pull through that way. Yeah.
and Fern, is that part of like sometimes it's good to kind of have a distraction. Sometimes it's good, obviously, to help others now, but and again, controlling, feeling you're able to control some things. So I would imagine that some of this, there's some great components because you want to feel useful and
Yes.
purposeful.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And it sounds like a great thing, right? And it's almost like when we are a rescuer, we can easily chalk it up to, well, I'm just a selfless, wonderful person because I'm just helping everyone all the time, which sounds great. And it is great. And it's not to say we shouldn't support people, but I think sometimes it can backfire because, so for example, and I suppose a good example for us is that if you have a disability, for example, and you're trying to do something and you're trying to be independent, and you might look to other people sometimes like that thing is a bit of a struggle for you. Now a rescuer, instead of going, how can I empower this person and support them in doing
Right.
that, they will just swoop right in and do it for you, right? And that's not so helpful, because then you're trapping that person in the situation where now they still can't do it because they haven't figured out how to do it because you've just taken over and done it for them. And so in a sense you're keeping them stuck in the same position, because then they're not able to grow because you're taking that out of their hands. Have you ever been in those situations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yes.
feel like even strangers feel that way too when they see somebody with a cane and they're like, "Okay, let me hold you." Like, no, that's not how you approach the situation. Sometimes people feel like it's their duty to rescue people with disabilities, and that's the mentality that unfortunately a lot of people feel that way. They don't
I
think,
find it
oh,
interesting.
these so-called people cannot be independent like that.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because sometimes they may actually have that opinion that somebody's
Mhm.
got to be there. Somebody's got to help this guy. Look, he's wandering around. He's
Yeah,
blind. But
look at him
sometimes,
being helpless. Yeah.
yeah, look at him fumbling around trying to find that door in 1.4 seconds. Instead of me leaving alone, he'll find it in 3 seconds. And use that stick of his. Wow, good grief. But I also think sometimes, and I speak to this in a really sympathetic, because it's a really to me disturbing, because it's somewhat sad thing. I've noticed people who feel they can't do anything for anyone else and zero right in on somebody with a disability or the person they think needs more help than they do. Almost like, I don't want to say a pecking order, but almost like they perceive the world in that way, that, well, that person doesn't need to hear from me. That person wouldn't listen to me. They're together. They don't need that. But that person they're blind. They need my help. And
Yeah.
there's that supportive need they have.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really good point, which I think why this is such a good example is that actually often after a situation like that, the person who is the rescuer might walk away feeling like, oh, I feel great, I've done my good deed for the day, that's that
Mhm.
ticked off. Whereas the other person, you know, potentially in this situation, a disabled person might feel rubbish about that. They might feel like, oh, I've just had my, you know, my independence completely taken away from me. I've been undermined. I've been, you know, kind of patronized and sort of acted like I'm incapable of doing this. When actually, I, like you say, Kelly, I was just about to walk through that door. I could have done that and I could have felt fine about myself. But now I feel very disabled. I feel very helpless. And actually, you're kind of taking something away from someone in that way. And it can be very frustrating, you know, because actually in that way, the rescuer is actually getting more out of the situation. They're getting their need for being needed met, whereas the other person isn't getting their needs met at all. They're actually being made to feel worse about themselves.
Yeah. Well, I've had that with people holding doors, right? They'll even call you over here. I've got the door for you over here. Oh, I've got this one. Thank you. All right. Oh, well then. They almost get annoyed. Or if I've stopped to open a door because I hear footsteps behind me, I don't know if it's a man, child, woman, I don't know who it is, but I stop because I was raised, hold the door for people. I step back, say, after you, good morning. And the person stops dead and says, no. Once they see my cane, no, after you. No, go ahead. No, after you. I've actually hollered at people when I've been in a lousy mood and said, would you get through the door? And it's just a frustrating thing that happens. I'm doing what I was just taught to do. It was automatic. And then it dawns on me, they can't bring themselves to go ahead of me. To them, I can't do that. And I try to respect.
They've been raised to not do that, right?
And you have to, at times, respect that. They're in the same position. I'm opening the door. It's okay for me to open the door to hold it for them. Please give me the courtesy of going through. You'll have every opportunity to hold doors for other people, or should. You know, doesn't matter if it's me next time, but it's also very interesting the way we think and how that makes them feel better. I had a guy adversely want to treat me to my breakfast. I was at the subway station, bought myself something through the window, and a guy stepped up and said, I've got it, put it with mine when I order. And I said, no, sir, I'm okay. Sir, I'm having a lousy day. Please let me do something.
Well, that is the perfect example of the rescuer, right? That is somebody who is doing something for somebody else, but actually that guy was in a way actually very self-aware, because he was like, I'm having a bad day. This is going to make me feel better. Let me do this for you.
Yes. It was almost like he was going to then say, I ain't doing it for you. Now get out of the way with your food and stop holding up the line.
I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me.
And I said to him, well, I smiled and said, thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Oh, that's nice. Well, and I think, you know, you talk about being raised in certain ways and learning to do certain things. I think this is often where this comes from, is that when we're young, when we are a rescuer, it's because we've been taught to caretake. So often these are people who have had to grow up quite quickly. Maybe they've had to look after a caregiver or a parent, and they have almost very often learned that love is to be earned. So I can't just be loved for me. I have to, it's kind of transactional, right? I have to do something to gain your affection and attention. So therefore, I have to be useful and help you in some way before you will care about me, or, you know, that I'll have any value to you.
Wow. That's such a, it sounds dark, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, some people.
Sorry, I was just going to say where people pleasing comes from. It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you realize, you know, some people's intentions are there, and you brought up a good example, Kelly, about that guy, but you know, his intention was sort of good. I mean, it was about himself. But people don't realize that, like, it affects us and how we feel about ourselves. And you know, we feel small when somebody feels like the need to help us, and they look at us as helpless people, and it's unfortunate. But you have to kind of be patient and realize, okay, they grew up in a certain way. We grew up in a certain way. You know, they might have good intentions by thinking that mentality of, okay, we just want to help those people that, you know, people with disabilities, which is not a good thing, but like, you might think maybe their intentions are good here. So it's not all bad.
Yeah. It's a really tough one, because sometimes people get that whole attitude that we try to prove to ourselves, no, I'm fine. I don't need you to help me cross the street. No,
Yeah.
I don't need. We have our own pride, but sometimes with a person with a disability, we have a little more because it's almost like the whole world is standing there in judgment. Oh, look, Fern took that help. Oh my goodness, she can't manage on her own. Oh my. And I know I had to grow enough in my life to realize when someone's saying, may I help you across the street? And I recognize they may be doing it more for themselves, whether they're scared to death to watch me cross the street. It might make them sick with anxiety. I have no idea. But I had to also realize that doesn't take from who I am. And that took a lot of years of, no, I'm quite fine. And then the anxiety of, well, you better be. You just told them to buzz off. You better cross properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, now watch you walk across the road and,
They
and
do,
fall
right
over.
behind you. Uh-huh.
Yeah, right. So, but you bring up a good point there, Kelly, because I think a lot of it is I can't bear the discomfort of watching this person struggle. I have to step in because this is too hard for me. And so I think one of the ways to kind of heal or to feel better about being a rescuer is to get used to the fact that sometimes someone struggling isn't always a bad thing, because like I said earlier, sometimes that means that they're learning something new. And sometimes that takes a while, and it takes a bit of practice or finding their own way of doing it. But actually, in the long run, that's going to be more helpful to them than you stepping in and taking that away from them. So actually just being able to sit with that and feel like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I do want to swoop in, but I'm not going to. And I can support someone and be here and say, I'm here if you need me, without fixing it for them and trying to just solve everyone's problems on their behalf.
Yeah. And this is difficult because there are different actions to being a rescuer, right? When you think of, somebody on the bus and they offer you a seat, you might think of it as a rescuing mission. But at the same time, I want people to kind of get up for me because it's a long ride for me and I have arthritis or whatever it may be. I need to sit down. But at the same time, like, other people might think of it, as you said, Kelly, it's like a pride thing. Like, why are you offering me a seat? You don't think I can handle it? Like, you don't think I can stand in a way?
I can stand here all day on the subway. You wait, I'll be here tonight.
Yeah, you become so defensive. So I think there are different types of actions to being a rescuer that you would be okay with and not okay with.
And I think this is where we need to be okay with communication and actually saying to someone, what would you like? And if they say, I'm fine standing, we need to believe them and not, as Kelly's man said, no, let me do it for you. Actually ask the question, listen to the answer. And even if that isn't what you wanted, say, okay, well, I've given you the choice and that's all I can do. And I think we need to get better at that instead of second guessing what other people want or then becoming resentful if they don't want what we want.
Yeah, sometimes we try to believe we know what they want. Fern, what's the price, the cost of being a rescuer?
Well, I mean, I guess it's the most obvious one is burnout, because you're running around, trying to solve everyone else's problems and not thinking about yourself. But also another one is resentment. Like when you're doing stuff for everyone else all of the time, you can start to feel like, God, I'm always the one having to do everything and nobody looks after me. But actually, it's quite often you making a rod for your own back, because actually you're not allowing anyone to take care of you or allowing yourself to take care of yourself even, because you are a rescuer. So you have to look at that and say, maybe I'm playing a part in this, and how can I change the situation? Because ultimately, it's only ourselves that we can control, right? We can talk to other people, we can request things from other people, but actually sometimes if you find yourself in the same situation over and over again, there's probably a part that you're playing in that. And if you can change that, the whole situation might start to change.
So what can we learn from rescuers?
Well, I think we need to learn that our needs are important too, and it's not selfish to look after ourselves. In fact, sometimes when we take a step back and say, I'm going to do me, I'm actually going to take myself out of this situation and everyone else can kind of figure it out for themselves, we might be doing them a favor. I recently spoke to somebody who said, I just got to the end of my tether with my family and I just walked out and just said, I can't do this right now. And actually what I learned from that was they were able to look after themselves. They were able to make themselves dinner and get on. And that's often what we learn, is when we come back, we go, oh, I've actually been doing stuff that everyone else is capable of if I only give them the chance to.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Fern. This is a great conversation that we can learn from.
My pleasure. Always here to rescue you if you need it.
Awesome.
That
Just
was
take care
Fern
of
Lulham.
yourself.
Yeah. Fern Lulham joins us for a psychotherapy breaking down conversations on mental health every other Monday.
We're looking for you out there. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision that we make at AMI, and that includes programming, media consumption, and of course, accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they get involved with, that we appreciate so much for their time, because time is so valuable. For more information and how you can join, go to ami.ca/panel. Absolutely, folks, take some time because we'd love to hear from you. Also, do us a favor, get out on Instagram and Twitter. Interact with Nisreen, especially. We've had some great conversations already here on the show. Maybe some things you want to comment on or look at some of our content out there. That's at Kelly & Co. AMI on Instagram and Twitter. Give us a follow, please. We appreciate it. We know cheese is a fantastic source of calcium, but there's more to it. Literally. Different cheeses can offer us so much more than just the calcium. So let's find out with nutritionist Julia Karantjas what really is there for us to think about. Julia, welcome back to the show. And I love cheese. Cheese makes you think so much about the different ways you use it, the different types and everything like that. Does, first of all, nutritional value, does it actually really differ between the different cheese types?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to use cheese. That's such a good point. And yeah, it does differ. I mean, there's so many types of cheeses, so it does make sense that it would differ. They're not all created equal. You've got really soft cheeses like ricotta and brie, and then you've got these aged hard cheeses like Parmesan, and then Swiss, cheddar is all in the middle. And so when you think about what makes different cheeses into these types, those factors, they have to affect it nutritionally. There's got to be some sort of difference. So it does. I mean, fat content is a big difference in a lot of these cheeses. And like the hard cheeses have less water, so you're getting more density there. So it definitely affects it. You could definitely use cheese as part of a healthy diet and then cherry pick which cheese you want, depending on what you want to get more of or less of.
What I find interesting about cheese, when we mention the different ways, you could take one given cheese, you can eat it cold, you can eat it room temperature, melt it on something as part of something. It zaps up tastes of things that you may combine it with, especially when melted. And it's amazing how different it can taste, but you still have your nodes that make you enjoy that cheese. You also can look at the various types of cheese, and not all cheeses, as we've talked about here, are equal. Is there other than eating too much of it, the one thing, because it can have that negative effect on your body, we always used to hear, cottage cheese. That's the one that's healthiest because of, for people wanting to eat a, quote, I don't even want to say more nutritious, but people may be weight conscious or conscious of how much cheese they eat. What is our thumbs down on cheese that we think about? Is if you're having too much of the drier cheese, would it impact you when it comes to if you're not much of a water drinker? Is there anything other than just kind of moderate how much you have at any given time, any given day, that we should do regardless, but enjoy cheese because it's everywhere?
It is everywhere. And it does add so much flavor, especially when it's melted. I mean, you can really
I love
elevate
it.
a basic sandwich by just adding some cheese or melted cheese. But
I'm happy just with a slice, just a piece of it. Oh my God. Now, not every cheese, like the strong ones get to me. My father, he was a big strong cheese. Oh, you like this? Here, Cal, try a piece of this. And my face was, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could take a Parmesan cheese, which is obviously very hard, aged. It's got 10 grams of protein per ounce. And then you compare that to ricotta cheese that has only 3 grams of protein per ounce. So if you need to increase your protein intake, cheese can be a way to manipulate your diet to do that. The only reason it would be too much would be, again, keeping those ratios of your carbs, fats, and protein in check, which is what you would want to do with all food.
Yeah.
regardless. So I wouldn't say there's a danger, but you don't want to be eating too much of anything. But variety, of course, is important because you've got, Parmesan cheese, which we know has this really high protein content. It also has a high calcium content. So that's useful for people that want to focus on getting enough calcium in their diet. Swiss cheese has a lot of vitamin K, which is great to know. We know that's great for our bones. This is due to the fermentation process. And then there's Gouda. If there's any Gouda cheese lovers out there, that's really good for your gut health because of the type of bacteria that's in it. So bacteria is used to ferment cheese, part of this fermentation process to get cheese into this cheese state. And the types of bacteria that are in Gouda are really good for your gut. Now, if you're lactose intolerant, that's an issue, right? There's where you want to be watching where if you're eating too much there, Kelly. So if you're noticing cramps, upset stomach, loose bowel movements, that could be a sign that you're not digesting the cheese very well. Options would be, yes, there's lots of dairy-free alternatives, but sheep and goat milk cheese is naturally lower in lactose. And so if somebody's lactose sensitive, those would be better options. So in terms of too much, I definitely would pay attention to how you're feeling after you eat cheese. If you're having troubles digesting it, that's a sign that it's not agreeing with you. And then look at the other options. So maybe trying something that's goat milk based instead, because it's going to naturally have that lower lactose. That can be very helpful. It's easier to digest cheese.
Yeah, you mentioned goat milk. Is there anything specific to highlight about goat cheese since it's a different dairy?
It is a different dairy. So it's just naturally found to be lower in lactose, which is it's a component of milk that a lot of people do have trouble digesting. They make enzymes, lactose pills, it's common. So it's definitely something that people have heard about and tend to be in tune with. So it's because it's naturally lower. I mean, nothing's been done to the cheese. It's just how the cheese is. That's why it's easier. Yeah, it's easier to digest. And there's lots of different types of goat milk cheese. I mean, traditionally you find it more on the softer side. But you can find, mozzarella style cheese that's made with goat milk. So that would fall under that same low lactose category, just because it's a different animal.
Yeah.
In comparison to that cow.
I've never really thought or viewed, to my knowledge, and I've never really asked people, hey, how many different types of cheeses do you have in your fridge at any given time? But how many types of cheeses do you guys have in your fridge at every given time? Because we go over this list and we look at different things, and I'm not saying everybody's going to run out, buy the cheeses on nutritional value and stuff like that, but even on your preferences, all of us like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kinds of cheese. You get curious, you say, oh, a smoky this or that, but due to generally financial or maybe shelf life, if you're worried about it being around too long or in your fridge, you're going to think twice about how much you go through. But it is one of those things that there's so many different types we like, but we will settle for maybe keeping 2 or 3 maybe in your fridge at a given time, a few times a year. It's not like, usually generally we may have those silly cheese, the slices, that kind of knockoff watery stuff for a grilled cheese sandwich. That's really where you'd use it. And then maybe mozzarella or marble cheese or something that you like. So I'll say, 2 or maybe 3 kinds of cheese in your fridge at a given time. It's not something, for whatever your reasons, you go to someone's house and a part of the fridge is called the cheese rack and you have like 5 or 6 different types of cheese. It's just really not, people aren't able to do that for multiple reasons, Julia, even though there's so many benefits. Again, eating in moderation.
Oh, yeah, agreed, for sure. I mean, I might buy ricotta, but it's for a specific recipe. It's not something that I have in my fridge as a staple. That would be, mozzarella, because we like to make pizzas at home. So that's a staple. And then I personally like Gouda. I just like the taste of it. I like the texture of it. I do find I digest it with no problems. Obviously, now we know it's because it's of the type of bacteria that's in the Gouda. So it is very gut friendly. And sometimes I have a Parmesan. And those are the 2 to 3 that I would have.
I love Parmesan.
Me too.
On everything. Yeah,
on everything.
exactly.
Okay.
But does cooking cheese with heat disturb anything that we've talked about?
Oh, that's a good question. It doesn't. No, it would just be the taste, the texture, the fat content, though. Not all cheeses, if they're lower in fat, do melt very well. So it might be a texture thing. The higher fat cheeses melt nicer on things. So if you are using lower fat options, sometimes melting them doesn't work the same way. Just something to
Mhm.
note. But nutritionally, no, you would, you'd still get like all the benefits of stuff. Bacteria maybe depending on how long you're cooking it for, because bacteria could be sensitive. But I'd have to see some like peer-reviewed studies to get a final verdict on that one. But you're not damaging the protein content, you're not damaging the fat content for sure. Those things would all stay intact, which is great because we do need protein. So when you're eating those hard cheeses that are super high in protein, that would all be intact. And
Mhm.
vitamin K, those things stay.
Okay, but
Yeah.
how different nutritionally is it to eat non-dairy cheese like the coconut cheese or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Really different. Um, in terms of protein, it's going to be really different. They're usually, depending on what they're made out of, going to be higher in fat because a lot of times you'll notice they're made with a nut. Cashew cheese can be a big one, or coconut milk based. So the protein will be nil, very low, and then the fat content will be much higher. So if right now, if you're using a dairy based cheese, you can use it for protein as well. If you're using a vegan based cheese, there's not going to be much protein in it. At least I haven't come across one that's been high in protein. And I've tried a lot of vegan cheeses because I don't know, I just eat a lot of food in general. So I'll try a lot of things, especially in
Right.
that in the wellness space. I'll try everything two
Mm-hmm.
or three times at least. Um, and then, yeah, you're not going to get the calcium, the same calcium, because that's coming from the dairy unless it's been fortified. So that might be something to check for. So some of those big nutrients like the calcium and then of course the protein, they're going to be missing. You're going to get a higher fat content. And then depending on what the nut they used is, um, those nutritional properties would be specific to the nut. But if you're using coconut milk, I mean, there's not a ton of stuff in coconut milk. It's just eaten really nice on the stomach. So you wouldn't
Mhm.
be getting the same vitamin K. You wouldn't be getting that calcium. So it's pretty different in terms of a nutritional benefit on the body.
Right. Good quality cheese is amazing, but expensive. Like, think about Spanish cheese. Oh
Yes.
my God, I'm obsessed with
Yes.
Spanish cheese. But wow, so expensive. Can you think of any foods that we can have that have similar nutritional benefits?
Well, yeah. So the hard cheeses, I mean, always we want to look for stuff on sale. I think that's your best friend is to look for sale options. Um, Ricotta cheese is really high in protein, obviously not the same as a hard cheese, but really high in protein. So if you're eating cheese for protein, you can get ricotta at a very good price and use it in a bunch of recipes or hot or cold. You can use it multiple ways. But I mean, yes, cheese is unfortunately expensive. The nice thing about cheese is you don't actually have to eat a lot. I mean, you can get over 200 milligrams of calcium from an ounce of cheddar, Swiss, or Parmesan cheese. And it's a little bit more
Right.
depending on which one you're choosing. So an ounce of cheese isn't that much. And so the quantity that you need to eat is less. So I
Okay.
Awesome.
would, that might make it go a little bit further if you watch that portion size.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned up the knockoff cheese, the sliced cheese stuff. So do you have a word on processed cheese, American cheese, cheese strings, any of that kind of stuff? Oh, cheese strings are nice,
Yeah.
Yeah, cheese strings are nice. Uh,
though.
well, there's some,
Is that
there's
like the
going to
milk
be a
chocolate
difference.
of cheese?
You know what? Sure, we could compare it. I mean, chocolate milk still has all the same stuff that milk has. So you're just getting the extra sugars. You're just getting extra stuff. When you look at the more processed cheeses, you're just increasing the additives that you're getting. Um, sometimes if it's really processed, you're definitely going to be missing out on some of those nutrients. They're not, the full dose of naturally fermented milk that you would get in fresh or aged cheeses. But if you don't choose low fat, you get a fat, you'd still get some protein from it. We do fortify a lot of our processed food here in Canada. And so depending on the brand that you're getting, you might be getting some extra nutrients because of the fortification. I mean, I always talk about processed cereals. Sometimes they get a bad rap because they're processed, but they're very fortified in key nutrients like iron and a bunch of other stuff like B vitamins that we really need. And I find that they're very helpful. So it could just be a matter of just checking the label to see if that particular food you're consuming is fortified. Because if it is, I mean, don't be so hard on yourself. That might be a really good option, especially if it's on sale. So I would always keep my mind and your mind open to those sorts of things, is that there could always be a pro. It always be a plus for things.
Yeah, I always wonder because because I'm very quick to be hard on that other cheeses, and I'm like, oh no, that's junk cheese. But all right, thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you next week. Nutritionist Julia Karantjas joins us on Mondays with tips for better diet on Mondays. So check out her past chats with us on our podcast feed if you would. Nazreen's been scouring, of course, online and come up with an interesting item that we have a few moments. We'll fit it in here. Nij, do you want to kind of introduce people to this concept?
Okay, so stick around because you're going to get some of my opinions on this after this article. And you'll get why I found this article. But every 2 weeks in a cozy corner of Bedfordshire, a group of strangers gather, not for a meeting, not for a class or a party, but for something a little more intimate, a cuddle puddle. That's what they call it. These gatherings are led by 41-year-old Sammy Wood, a professional cuddler who believes in the healing power of human touch. Wrapped in blankets and nestled among cushions, attendees engage in fully clothed platonic cuddling to promote comfort, connection, and emotional healing. Sammy says, touch isn't just comforting. It can also boost feel-good hormones like serotonin or oxytocin, while lowering stress levels and even regulating the nervous system. Sammy offers both group sessions and one-on-one cuddle therapy tailored to her clients' comfort levels, whether that's sitting close, spooning, or simply sharing a quiet moment with a hand on a shoulder. And while some might raise an eyebrow at the idea of paying for a cuddle, Sammy is clear this is a strictly platonic, consent-based service. Clients are screened, boundaries are discussed, and consent forms are signed before a single hug is shared. So one regular attendee described it as healing without words, and Sammy believes the need for connection is more urgent than ever, especially in a post-pandemic world where isolation has taken a toll. So next time you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, remember, sometimes all it takes is a safe space and a good cuddle. So Kelly, I found this article after a video circled around TikTok of a husband that hired somebody off of Facebook Marketplace, a man, to cuddle his wife because he wants to be gaming and he doesn't want so much touchy time with his wife. So basically that's the story of it, okay? Where a man found somebody on Facebook Marketplace, a professional cuddler, and boom, they hired them for his wife. And I'm like, this is wild. I would never in a million years, this is my opinion, I would never in a million years hire a stranger to touch me, to cuddle with me. Like,
or send
what do you
one
think?
to your partner,
or
whatever,
send one
right?
to your
Like,
partner. Don't ever do that.
Or to your mom for Mother's Day,
this
or
is
whatever.
a bad
right?
sign. Red flag, red flag, red flag, flying around the room.
Yeah, to me, it's such it's rife with, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Some of the things mentioned, the reasons one might appreciate, I'm not going to argue, but with your partner, with people, the right people, why would you be better with strangers. I'm not sure about floating
No.
that, but I can't speak for everybody on the planet and their own
Yes.
individual circumstance. I understand that. But again, unfortunately, this is one of those things that even for that one person who may have nobody else and needs just a hug or whatever excuse you want to give, you're still opening them and anyone else to that negative element out there. And it's not worth it. To me,
It's not.
unfortunately, it's one of those things. Too much harm can come from this. It's not acceptable. I hate
can't
being
trust
closed-minded.
people, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's asking for trouble while trying to present a no, there won't be trouble. We do this and that, and I hate closing my mind because I'm not in any circumstance, and I can't even give you an example of one that makes me say, oh, this is okay in this circumstance. I don't have that because unfortunately, this just to me. Asking for trouble, putting somebody in a really bad position.
So I was curious on how much this costs.
Yes.
So I had to search it up. It costs about $60 to $100 per hour, but it also depends on the services. So if you want to add any add-ons to that service, such as extra spooning or
Oh my.
yeah, it's just a lot of extras to the side if you want extra
I'm
touch
sure.
or whatever types of touch you want. That's just out there. But extra services may cost more. Regardless, listen to me. I'm a cuddler. I love. I'm an affectionate person, but I would never hire a stranger to hold me. That's just too much. You're just being too trustworthy right there. I don't trust people, especially online. And you need to be very aware of the situation. But it is a thing, Kelly. This profession is a thing,
Yeah.
and it's wild to me. I never thought it would be such a thing out there, but a lot of people on social media after that video went out, a lot of people were sharing, oh, I would love to do that. I would love to do this. So it is a bit strange.
Well, and maybe that's in their minds, their circumstance, they're saying in their situation, they'd love to do it without thinking of what kinds of things that are negative that can come from this. I mean, sure, organized crime is giving thumbs up on it. Remember to check out our podcast from your platform of choice. Also follow us on our YouTube page. All sorts of great content, great things that we put out there. We love it. Extra things that are there. We appreciate you following along on both. Subscribing, maybe giving us a rating and review. That's our YouTube page. And follow the podcast feeds if you would. Exploring a new city is always great, but for traveling describer and traveler JJ Hunt, there's nothing quite like exploring a old city from the ancient world. JJ, what ancient Maya city are you taking us to today, and welcome?
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I thought maybe we could go and explore the ancient city of Calakmul. Perhaps not a city you guys have heard of before. Anyone been to Calakmul before?
No.
No, but I would love to.
No. So Calakmul is in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, very close to the Guatemalan border. At its peak, the ancient city had a population of something around 50,000 people.
Wow.
And covered an area of about 20 square kilometers. And in this area, in this ancient city, something like 6,750 separate structures have been identified, including some of the biggest pyramids, some of the biggest structures in the ancient Maya world. So I'm a big fan of going to, I like exploring downtowns. I like doing walking tours of living cities, but going to these ancient cities, these ruins, I always find them to be like fascinating experiences.
Can you describe it, JJ? Like if you were plucked up from where you are, or Nazreen or I were, and just boom, put right there, right now, in the middle of town, what do we look at if we look around at 360-degree angles? What do we see?
So great question. So to start with, the idea of getting plucked up and dropped down reminds me of looking up Calakmul on Google Maps. If you look up Calakmul on Google Maps, the first thing that you'll see is a pin in a field of green. because there is nothing around it. This is a jungle, a city that is now in the middle of the jungle. So there is one road that comes in, and it's about a 45-minute drive down this jungle road off of the highway. You're in the middle of the jungle. And so if you were dropped right in there, in all directions is nothing but the sound of the jungle. Maybe some jaguar, passing by, lots of the, frogs and crickets. The soundscape is dense. The trees are heavy. We're talking right in the middle of the capital J jungle. And then tucked in are these structures. Some of them are like step temples, so like pyramids, like you would see in, like, if you picture an ancient Egyptian pyramid, but without smooth sides. These are steps that go up in a temple form. And then some parts of the city are just complete ruins. So you get rocks along the ground, kind of laying out the floor plan of what would have been a small structure, a small house. But now most of the walls are gone, and you just have these vine-covered, ankle-high or knee-high walls built of hand-chiseled blocks of limestone. And in a place like Calakmul, one or two little modest offices to pay your ticket, maybe get a bottle of water, maybe meet a guide. But this isn't like there's not like some big gate with a welcome mascot like, "Hi, welcome to Calakmul." You have arrived in the middle of the jungle. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to conceive how much disappears. That's what I think when we think of a buried city, and you think, well, but these are big stuff. Where the hell they go, right? Like, we don't understand the timing. Did someone steal them? Did the jaguars eat them? What happened?
Yeah. Oh, some of these structures. I mean, some of them are so massive that they literally rise above the treetops, 150 foot tall. Some of these pyramids.
Good gosh,
so you can see them from above. A couple of them that just poke out of the top of this blanket of trees, but before they've been excavated, so much time has passed that a lot of these buildings have, first of all, crumbled. So the, mid-sized buildings, they've crumbled into piles, and then the forest eats them. Like, the forest just covers over them. The tree roots grow over, and falling trees turn to, get broken down by all the insects and turn to a soil. So all of the, what look like mounds are actual, like just mounds of earth, are actually
covered buildings.
Crumbled buildings. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And when you roam around, does it feel like you're in like, no, because you said about the field, it just amazes me, because even if you isolate, the professors, all right, over there is a building, you can tell because of all the bush growing out of it and the blah, 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 the soil covering it. Like, in theory, could you, in your own mind, standing somewhere, imagine that time when these were buildings, like when that mound, that one, they were next to each other, these were buildings.
Well, that's of those in Calakmul, of those 6,750 structures, I think about 6,200 have been at least partially excavated. So one wall or the outside, or maybe the mound has been uncovered. It's still a mound, but it's a mound of stone as opposed to a mound of soil now. And certainly the biggest, most important and impressive structures have been completely uncovered and patched up. And in fact, when we were there, this was just before the pandemic, so 2019, we were able to climb the tallest pyramid, and we were told that they were closing down the climbing. They were shutting it down because it's just too much. It's hard on the material, and it's dangerous. There are no safety railings. There's no anything. These are just uneven steps that are twice as tall as they are deep. So they're completely wonky. You have to climb up on all fours because it's just so steep.
I can't balance myself either.
Oh, no, you have to use your hands. And amazingly, when we were there were a couple people wearing flip-flop sandals.
Ew.
Wow.
I can't even imagine.
Scratching their feet.
To get back down, we had to go down on our bums because it was just, we couldn't walk down the steps. So for those
scary.
kinds of buildings, yeah, you can start to imagine. But the thing that's challenging, that I find challenging, is that all of these buildings, everything looks ancient and crumbling and gray and brown because that's the color of these stones. But in fact, when these cities were alive, when there were tens of thousands of people living there, they would have been all basically stuccoed over and painted. So there would have been amazing colors all around. The people who were there probably would have been wearing clothing and body decorations, body art that was brilliant and colorful, as opposed to the khaki greens and the khaki browns that those Indiana Jones like explorers like me try and wear when they go into the jungle.
We got a minute, JJ. Tell us about the storm, though, in the jungle.
Oh, yeah. So we were on the tallest pyramid, again, about 150 feet tall. The base of this pyramid is about the size of a residential city block. It's big. And we were up and above, just above the treetops, which are about 100 feet tall for most of the trees. And we could see a storm was coming. And this is like the storms in the Yucatan are fast and fierce. And this one was coming right toward us. And we looked those steps and we're like, we can't get down. We're stuck up here. So we found a little corner at the top of the pyramid, which had a flat top. And we found a little overhang of stone. And my, two kids, my lady love and I, we just hunkered down as best we could and let this storm wash over us. It was the most amazing thing to feel a passing storm, in all of that heat and all of that humidity just got washed away. The storm went past, and we were all safe. The steps dried out. We got back down safe and sound. But what an experience to be above the treetops, like watching and feeling a storm pass right over you. It was extraordinary.
Wow.
Man. Forgot where I was here, that we were doing a show here, just picturing the image. As usual, sir, fantastic job, and not enough time. JJ, thank you, man.
You guys be well.
It's always a good time having JJ around for history and geography lessons, and told to us in description-rich ways. JJ, so wonderful. Thank you again. Nisreen, thank you. We'll be back at this tomorrow on the show. On the program, we chat with disability archivist Michael Marlett on how to preserve film history through accessible and inclusive ways. Michael shares some insights for us through his research, advocacy, and hands-on work with major organizations like TIFF and the Disability Screen Office, and tells us about his role as an archival producer in an upcoming documentary. All that when we get into it with him on the program tomorrow. Fedora's off to you. Have a great Monday.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.